Consumer surplus. The Bradley textbook defines consumer surplus as the difference between expenditure a consumer is willing to make on successive units of a good from Q equaling to 0 to Q equaling Q0 and the actual amount spent on Q0 units of a good at the market price P0 per unit. We can see in the graph the saving the consumer makes by buying at the equilibrium is shown by the red shaded area P1AB. The formula for consumer surplus is given by integrating the demand function with the limits Q0 and 0 and taking away the price multiplied by quantity at equilibrium.
Producer surplus, on the other hand, can be defined as the difference between the revenue the producer receives for Q0 units of a good when the market price is P0 per unit and the revenue that the producer was willing to accept for successive units of the good from Q equaling 0 to Q equaling Q0. We can see with the graph the benefit the producer makes by selling at equilibrium, shown by the red shaded area P1AB. The formula for producer surplus is given by multiplying the price and quantity at equilibrium, then taking away the integration of the supply function with the limits Q0 and 0.
Let's see what a typical question for consumer and producer surplus would look like. The demand and supply functions for a good are P equaling 50 minus Q squared and P equaling 10 plus 6Q respectively. Calculate the equilibrium price and quantity and calculate the consumer and producer surplus at equilibrium. As we have gathered from the question, the demand function is equal to 50 minus Q squared and the supply function is equal to 10 plus 6Q. In order to find the equilibrium price and quantity, we can equate the functions simultaneously. This results in a quadratic equation 0 equaling Q squared plus 6Q minus 40. We can then factorize it to make Q equaling minus 10 and Q equaling 4. But as we can't have a minus quantity, Q must equal 4. Then to find P, we simply sub in Q equaling 4 into the equation P equals 10 plus 6Q, so P equals 34. Knowing the consumer surplus, all we need to do now is substitute the respective values, Q0 equaling to 4, demand function equaling 50 minus Q squared, and P0 equaling 34. We can integrate 50 minus Q squared to the limits 4 and 0, and take away 136, so the consumer surplus is 42.67. We can do exactly the same for producer surplus by substituting the respective values, Q0 equaling to 4, supply function equaling 10 plus 6Q, and P0 equaling 34, so the producer surplus is 48.
But what about the real world? We've all heard about eBay, one of the most popular buying and selling platforms on the internet. We decided to examine the consumer and producer surplus in a real-world context, such as eBay. Let's say that we go on eBay, and there's an item that we're willing to pay £70 for, but we place a winning bid at £2. The consumer surplus will be £68, as shown in the graph. As bids increase, the consumer surplus will consequentially decrease. As we can see in the following graph, when you buy items at a discounted price, the consumer surplus increases, as shown in the blue shaded area. On the other hand, for a producer, when a higher bid is placed on the original market price of the good, the producer's surplus increases, as shown in the blue shaded area on the graph.